Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 32 female, am facing an awkward and infuriating situation with my stepfamily. My stepfather, Richard, believes that I am responsible for my stepsister Ellie's death and that it's my responsibility to bail her out. I've been stewing over this for weeks now, and honestly, I'm still baffled that this conversation even happened. For some context, I've always been a very business-minded person. Even as a kid, I was fascinated by the idea of making money and creating something of my own. While other kids were spending their allowances on toys, I was saving mine to buy craft supplies to sell handmade bracelets at school. At 18, I started flipping thrift store finds on eBay, and by the time I graduated college, I had a profitable little e-commerce business. That was just the beginning. Over the years, I expanded my ventures, reinvesting everything I earned into new opportunities. By 26, I was running 2 successful businesses, and by 30, I had reached millionaire status. It wasn't easy. There were long nights, failed projects, and plenty of stress. But I'm incredibly proud of what I've built. I'll admit, I have a taste for luxury. I love designer fashion, fine dining, 5-star hotels, and the occasional indulgence in champagne or jewelry. I don't hide this. I worked hard for my money, and I believe in enjoying it. But I've always been responsible with my spending. I save, invest, and plan for the future. My lifestyle isn't just about spending. It's about being smart with money so I can afford the things I love. Now, on to my family situation. My mom met Richard about 5 years ago. She'd been single for years after divorcing my dad, and when she met Richard, she seemed genuinely happy. Richard is charming in a traditional way, polished, polite, and attentive to my mom. They got married after 2 years of dating, and while I wouldn't say I was thrilled about gaining a stepfamily as an adult, I was happy for her. Richard has a daughter, Ellie, 29 female, from his previous marriage. Ellie is a nice enough person, but we're very different. She has a good corporate job, earns a solid salary, and seems content with her career. We've never been particularly close, but we've always gotten along well enough. Things started to feel strange about a year ago. Ellie began complimenting my clothes, jewelry, and lifestyle more frequently. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured she just admired my taste, which was flattering. But then I started noticing her wearing things that seemed familiar. A Rolex watch, a Cartier bracelet, high-end designer shoes, pieces that I knew weren't cheap. I was surprised, but assumed she must have saved up or maybe received them as gifts. At the same time, Ellie started posting about luxury vacations and expensive dinners on social media. I found it a little odd, since I knew her salary didn't match the lifestyle she was showcasing. But again, I brushed it off. Not my business at the end of the day. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Richard asked to speak with me privately. I assumed it was about something trivial, like my mom's birthday or a family event. But instead, he blindsided me with a request. Ellie was in serious financial trouble. She had maxed out multiple credit cards, taken out loans, and was barely managing her monthly payments. I was stunned. I asked how this had happened, and Richard said Ellie had been trying to keep up with my lifestyle. He told me she admired the way I lived and wanted to emulate it, but didn't have the means to do so. As a result, she dug herself into a financial hole, and now she was struggling to climb out. And then came the real kicker. Richard told me it was my fault. According to him, my lavish example had influenced Ellie and created unrealistic expectations for her own life. He claimed that if I hadn't been so flashy with my wealth, Ellie wouldn't have felt the need to compete or spend beyond her means. Then, he asked me to pay off her debts, arguing that as the wealthier older sister, I had a moral obligation to help her out. I was floored. I asked Richard, "Are you seriously blaming me for Ellie's financial decisions?" He said yes, doubling down on the idea that I had set a bad example and made Ellie feel inadequate. He argued that since I could easily afford to cover the debts without it impacting my finances, it was only fair that I step in and help her. I was furious. I told him that Ellie is 29 years old, not a child, and that she is responsible for her own spending. I reminded him that I've worked hard for everything I have, and that I've never asked anyone for a handout. I also pointed out that Ellie had never come to me for advice or help. If she admired my lifestyle so much, why hadn't she asked me how I managed my money instead of trying to copy my spending? Richard wouldn't budge. He accused me of being selfish and a spoiled little brat. The conversation ended with him storming off, and now my mom is stuck in the middle. She told me she understands my perspective, but thinks I could at least help a little to avoid causing tension. Meanwhile, Ellie hasn't said a word to me about any of this. She hasn't asked for help, apologized, or even acknowledged the situation. I've been going over this in my head ever since. On one hand, I could pay off Ellie's debts without it affecting me much financially. On the other hand, I feel like doing so would send the wrong message. If Ellie got herself into debt trying to live a lifestyle she couldn't afford, then bailing her out would only enable her to continue making poor financial decisions. Richard's insistence that this is somehow my fault feels absurd. I'm not responsible for Ellie's choices, and I refuse to believe that my success is something I should feel guilty about. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay off my stepsister's debts, even though I could easily afford it? Ellie is a grown adult with a steady job. If she chose to spend beyond her means, trying to emulate someone else's lifestyle, that's on her. OP's stepfather's audacity to blame OP for her poor financial decisions is absurd. OP has worked hard for her success, and it's not OP's responsibility to clean up after someone else's choices. If Ellie admired OP so much, she should have come to OP for advice instead of digging herself into a hole. OP should not let them guilt her into this. It's not OP's job to bail her out. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Honestly, not the a-hole. But this feels like a classic case of misdirected blame. Your stepfather probably feels guilty for not guiding Ellie better and is projecting that onto you. It's easier for him to point fingers at your lavish lifestyle than to acknowledge that Ellie's spending habits are entirely her own responsibility. Also, the fact that Ellie hasn't said anything to you directly is telling. If she doesn't even have the courage to ask for help herself, why should you feel obligated to step in? Not the a-hole. Richard's logic is insane. By his reasoning, anyone with a successful sibling or relative could blame them for feeling inadequate and making bad decisions. Ellie has a good job. She's not some helpless person without options. She chose to overspend. The fact that you could pay off her debts isn't relevant. You're not responsible for her financial mess just because you happen to have money. If anything, Richard and Ellie should be asking you for advice, not demanding a handout. Stay firm. Update. Hi everyone. First, I want to thank everyone who weighed in on my original post. It's been incredibly helpful to hear different perspectives, and I appreciate the validation. I wish I had a positive update, but things have only gotten worse since I posted. After my stepfather, Richard, demanded that I pay off Ellie's debts because my lavish lifestyle set a bad example for her, there's been a noticeable shift in the atmosphere at my mother's house. I visit them regularly to see my mom, but now it feels like I'm walking on eggshells every time I step through the door. From the moment I arrive, the tension is palpable. Richard gives me these judgmental looks, and Ellie avoids eye contact altogether. It's clear that Richard has been stirring the pot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ellie now believes I'm some sort of villain who refuses to help her out of a situation that I supposedly caused. I've even started feeling self-conscious about how I dress when I visit. Normally, I love wearing my nice jewelry or a designer bag, but now I hesitate. I feel like every piece of jewelry, every expensive shoe, or every luxury bag I carry is being scrutinized. It's as if my presence alone is an affront to them. Once, I arrived wearing a pair of Chanel flats, and Richard made a snide comment about how I must have an entire closet just for shoes that cost more than his mortgage. It's gotten to the point where I actively dread visiting. What was once a place where I felt welcome and comfortable has become a minefield of passive-aggressive remarks and awkward silences. I've tried keeping the peace by dressing down when I visit. Simple outfits, no jewelry, and no flashy accessories. But it doesn't seem to make a difference. The tension is still there, and I feel like I'm being punished just for existing. The breaking point came during my last visit. I had been there for about an hour, chatting with my mom in the kitchen, when Richard walked in and said, "You know, maybe it's best if you don't come around here for a while. Seeing you show off your wealth isn't good for Ellie. It's not fair to her." I was stunned. Showing off my wealth. I wasn't wearing anything flashy that day, just a plain sweater, jeans, and sneakers. I didn't say anything right away because I was too shocked to respond. I looked at my mom, hoping she would say something, but she just looked down and said nothing. That silence hurt more than anything Richard had said. My mom has always been my rock, the one person I could count on to support me. But in that moment, it felt like she chose to stay neutral instead of standing up for me. I finally found my voice and said, "I'm not showing off. I'm just living my life. I'm not responsible for Ellie's choices or how she feels about my success." Richard rolled his eyes and said, "You don't get it. Every time you come here, it's like rubbing salt in the wound. You make her feel like she's failing because she'll never have what you have." I looked at my mom again, hoping she'd back me up, but she just kept staring at the floor. I felt tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall in front of Richard. I told him, "If Ellie feels that way, it's not because of me. It's because of her own insecurities and the way you enable her to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. I've done nothing wrong, and I won't apologize for my success or for living my life." I left shortly after that and haven't been back since. I feel heartbroken about the situation. I love my mom, and I want to have a relationship with her. But it feels impossible when Richard is constantly making me out to be the bad guy. I've thought about inviting my mom out for lunch or coffee, just to spend time with her away from the toxic atmosphere of their home. But I'm not sure if she'd even agree. It's clear that Richard has made up his mind about me, and I don't think anything I say or do will change that. What hurts the most is that my mom didn't defend me. I know she's in a tough spot, but her silence feels like a betrayal. I'm at a loss about what to do next. Should I keep trying to maintain a relationship with my mom despite the tension? Or is it time to step back and focus on my own space? I lost both my parents in 2020 from virus. Early in the virus, they had asked if I would take over protecting the trusts for my sister's children and stepchildren. I said yes. Both my sister's bio and both the stepkids are going to be paid a lump sum when they turn 20 that my parents had saved for them. My sister is aware the money exists. She knew from our parents. She is also aware I am overseeing it until they are old enough. My sister's first husband died many years ago. Her first husband's family are still active in her bio's lives. At Christmas, they were made aware of a large savings account for both of them that was added to by both her late husband and the grandparents. This appears to be a very large sum of money. Not sure just how much, but it was enough to rattle my sister and her husband, because this puts them at a huge advantage compared to their step-siblings, who never had any relationship with their mother's extended family or their mother. My sister asked me to put the bio's money from our parents into the trusts for her stepkids, so that way they have it somewhat evened out. I said I wouldn't feel right doing that. She told me I have the power to do it, and it's in my hands. I told her I would follow the instructions left by our parents and would not change anything. She told me I'm going to make her stepkids feel like crap, and it's going to divide her family more than it already is. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You are a trustee, not a decision maker, and it's not right for you to do anything different to what your parents asked you to. Imagine how your bio nieces, nephews would feel if they were led to believe that their grandparents didn't include them, or that you changed the setup. I'm not sure why a step-sibling would expect to receive from their step-sibling's deceased father, to be honest. Not the a-hole. It was generous of your parents to leave the stepchildren anything. Your sister is out of line for asking you to take away from one set of children and give it to the other. Even if it is in your power, it's not your duty to steal someone's inheritance, and that's essentially what you would be doing. Your sister can talk to the kids when they get older if she wants, and let them decide. Not to mention the children whose inheritance you took could take legal action against you, since you wouldn't be in accordance with the will. Not the a-hole. You're doing your late parents' last wishes regarding their grandchildren. If she wants to even it out, she can do so herself after. Imagine being the children and finding out they got less than the other two. Who would be to blame? Yep, that would all go on you when they felt put out and not as loved because the money wouldn't reflect it so. I know it shouldn't state that, but sadly it does more often than not. Months ago, my husband bumped into my sister's fiance. Let's call him Mark. 29-30 male, not sure. They were not particularly close, but they know each other. My husband was coming to pick me up for a date, and Mark was surprised because my sister told him she was hanging out with me. This set off an alarm with both of them. I have to provide some clarity before the next part. Both me and my sister moved to the same city for job. Our parents are back in hometown. So both of us are very close and spend a lot of time together. Sometimes my sister would just show up after work and we will go for a drink or do something. Then, at one point, my sister told Mark she was going to hang out with me again. My husband nonchalantly mentioned it and thought we would be hanging out instead of my sister. I didn't think much of it since my sister sometimes does show up. I ended up calling my sister to say I would be hanging out with my husband. Ask her not to come if she plans to. My husband and Mark take this as I was helping to cover for my sister. They then checked out both mine and my sister's phone. Of course, my husband found nothing on mine, but Mark found some suggestive texts. They hired a private investigator to follow both me and my sister. They caught my sister went to a hotel with a guy multiple times. Back to now. I'm really angry. I feel like my husband can't trust me at all, but the circumstances seem reasonable. I asked him why he didn't talk to me. He said if I know, my sister will know, and they wouldn't be able to get any evidence. You know what? I'm angry that he's probably right. I would definitely talk to my sister if I'd known and talk her out of it. My husband now wants me to cut contact with my sister because he said we are too close and will be a bad influence. Our relationship will be over if he found out I'm helping my sister. My sister has been my support when I'm going through hardship. Now that she is going through problem, I can't imagine not being there. I also hate that I know I should be angry with my sister rather than my husband, but I just don't. Advices? Was your sister wrong for what she did? Yes. I can see why your husband doesn't want you to have a relationship with her. But honestly, your husband's behavior concerned me a lot, and I don't get all the comments trying to justify his behavior. He has such little faith in you that he thinks you hanging around your sister would be a bad influence, even though you're a grown woman. He didn't trust you at all. He didn't even take the time to have a conversation with you. He jumped to conclusions and went behind your back with your brother-in-law. He hired a private investigator to follow you and went through your phone because he doesn't trust you. Didn't even give you a chance to explain it or anything. I'd be seriously looking at how quick he was to distrust you and treat you like you did something wrong. Extremely worrying. You literally had no clue what was going on. Without trust, there is no relationship. It's obvious he doesn't trust you. He's punishing you when you were just blindsided by all of this, just like he and your brother-in-law were. Did he even apologize? There's so many people in these comments saying he's right and you should cut your sister off. Life is not black and white. We have no idea how her marriage was. Your husband has very valid points. Your sister's in the wrong here, but she's your family. If you talk to your sister, your marriage will be over, while if you cut contact with your sis, you end up losing a family member. My suggestion would be an honest conversation with your husband and sister. Don't hide anything. Be honest about everything. Also, remind your sister you are not going to help her or cover for her if she cheats. She would be on her own. Say it in front of your husband, so both can get the message loud and clear. As a sis, you should help her at this low point, but you're not going to be her alibi and destroy her marriage. I get along with most of my coworkers, except for this one older lady. Let's call her Jane, who's been trying to make my life miserable for the past 2 years. My main point of contention has been her constant comments on my weight. It started with little jokes at first, and turned into her seriously trying to pressure me to drop a few pounds, recommending gyms, talking about how I'd find a girlfriend if I was thinner, that she hates to see people lonely. I should make it clear she knows nothing of my intimate life, and I had never mentioned feeling lonely. All those comments and suggestions unprompted, after I made it explicit they were not welcome. Something I should add is that although I have a few insecurities, my weight is not one of them. I like the way I look, and I don't want to change that. Although I'm not out at work, I'm gay, and overweight hairy men have their niche in the community, which probably explains why I've never had any issues with the way I present myself, despite what the general beauty standards are. All that aside, she's just a very unpleasant person to be around, and most of my coworkers barely tolerate her. I'm also not the only person she gives unprompted makeover advice to. She does this with almost half the office apparently. What's more, she's not a good-looking person herself. Not that it would make it any better, but it just takes a lot of gall to do what she does when you're barely a 5 on a good day. Anyway, jump to a few days ago. We're having an office get-together at a coworker's place, and Jane gets through the door literally bawling. We then learn that her husband left her for another woman. Classic middle-aged people drama, I suppose nothing major. Everyone tries to comfort her, me included. She doesn't stop ranting, crying, etc. And at one point she blurts out, "I just don't understand why he'd leave me for an S fatter than my name." I had had it with her and was more than a few drinks in, so I responded, "Honey, he probably left you because when you open your mouth, it's either let out some judgy BS or your ugly crooked smile." I wasn't exactly proud of what I said, mostly because it sounded cornier in real life than what I had imagined in my head. But what was out, so I just ranted about her being one of the most vile people I know, that I couldn't imagine having to spend every day of my life with someone like her, especially that her looks don't make up for what she lacks in personality. The one thing I would have loved to add is that I've been seeing her son on and off for a year, but I wasn't sure he was out to her, so I didn't risk it. She didn't stop crying and left the party with her one actual friend from the group. I think what I did was over the top, but still reasonable. Half my coworkers agree. The other half think it was too much to kick her down at her lowest. I think it's not my fault she decided to take a shot at me when she was in a bad place. Otherwise, I would have left her alone. Am I the a-hole? Everybody sucks here. Yeah, she sounds awful, but saying that her husband leaving her is just classic middle-aged people drama, and nothing major, and proceeding to rant about how terrible she is also terrible. Everyone sucks here. Don't be a jerk, even when people deserve it. It takes away from your character and who you are. Instead of lashing out, you say, "I know you were upset, but it's not an excuse to be an a-hole to me," and you walk away. This accomplishes multiple things. It calls her out on her BS, and it makes it clear you are a better person than she is, not only to the people witnessing, but to yourself. Not the a-hole. You didn't kick her when she was down. She went to kick you, and you toppled her over. Frankly, it was a long time in coming. Even at her lowest, she attempted to hurt others to make herself feel better. What a glaring red flag of a-holism if ever there was one. I'm glad you finally set her straight, and I'm proud of her husband for escaping. Granted, pretty much anyone is a step up from her, but now he is aware of it too. Background: I was with my ex-husband for 20 years. I had a set of wedding rings that we purchased together and that I sadly lost around the birth of my first child. At the same time, I found out my now ex-husband cheated on me during my pregnancy and during my son's early infancy. We decided to patch things up, and after a couple of months, I asked for a new ring to replace the ones we lost. I found a beautiful 2-carat old mine diamond, and I designed the ring myself and had it custom made. I paid for both the diamond and the setting in full from money collected from the insurance of my old rings. My ex-husband did pick it up from the jeweler. It was overseas. He picked it up when he was there on business and had it delivered to me. That was pretty much his only contribution to my new ring. However, I love this ring with all my heart. Not for any sentimental reasons, but because I put a lot of thought into it, and I love how it looks. The ring is not engraved with anything, not dates or names, nothing. Me and my ex is now amicably divorced. We stayed together 5 more years, and we both have new partners. I see a proposal in the future, and I would love to marry my new boyfriend. However, we don't have that much money, or any money really, to pay for a ring, and my old ring is just sitting in my bathroom cabinet looking sad. Selling the ring would give us some money, but not nearly enough to buy an equivalent. Old mine cuts go for crap money in my country, and it's rather hard to find too. I want to wear my old ring as my engagement ring. My friends, however, say it's weird that I want to wear my old ring with my new partner, and that I would be an a-hole to both my ex and my current partner. However, I don't think so, since I don't attach any sentimental values to the ring, and I got it at the very end of our marriage. Would I be the a-hole if I suggested we use my old ring? No a-holes, but sort of limited imagination here. Just wear the ring you designed and paid for on a different finger, edit, or hand. It's your ring. It doesn't have to be linked to your old relationship at all, and there is no reason to link it to your new one either. You're the a-hole. An engagement ring, whether you purchased it with your own money or your ex-partner purchased it, has incredible sentimental value. It's a symbol of your love with the person who presented it to you, and it's a promise from that person that they will marry you. It's a big deal and a very personal thing. I can understand that you may love this ring because you were the one to design it, which is why you kept it. However, it should never be used as an engagement ring again. Also, if and when your boyfriend is ready to propose, he should do so with a ring he chose and he picked out, one that means something to the both of you and that would be his commitment to you. Frankly, given your ex, I wouldn't give a crap what he thinks either way. That ship's long since sailed and sunk. I would definitely ask the new partner about it. There's obviously the past history that should be discussed, but beats it just sitting in the closet. You would not be the a-hole, in my opinion. I, 35 female, have been with my husband, 43 male, James, for 3 years. Married for 18 months. He has a 21-year-old daughter from his previous marriage, Jane. Jane and I get along well, but she was already away at college by the time her dad and I got serious, so we don't have a very close relationship. James and I are looking to purchase a home together because our current home is not going to work for me in the long term due to some disabilities. We found a few we liked and were discussing our options when I referred to the third bedroom as the guest room. James asked what I meant because that would be Jane's room. This led to an argument between us because I don't think Jane needs a dedicated room in our new home. She's renting her own place now, with roommates, year-round, no more student housing, and she still has her room at her mom's house. Of course, she's always welcome to visit, and if she were to ever need to move back in, then we would adjust at that time. But as it stands, she's an adult moving on to the adult portion of her life, and it seems silly to dedicate a room for her when she'll use it for 2 weeks out of the year, max. My husband is upset with me, but I really don't think his position is that strong. She's a grown-up now. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I don't think a fully moved-out adult needs their own room in their parents' house. Guest rooms should do well enough for visiting. You can convert it into her room in the future if she needs to go back home for an emergency housing situation. No a-holes. I don't see what the difference is. You put a bed and some furniture in a room and it becomes a bedroom. Regardless of what you call the room, it's still just a bedroom. Seems like a silly issue with no real conflict. You're the a-hole. There will be a room, and it will be a bedroom. So why are you against having it be her room and letting her decorate it? You can still have guests stay in it when she isn't in it. The only difference is who gets to pick the decor and what you will call it.